Have you ever felt disrespected, especially as you've gotten older? Maybe it's a passive-aggressive comment, someone interrupting you, or being dismissed like your opinions don't matter. As we age, wisdom and life experience should earn us respect, but sometimes it feels like the opposite happens. This video is for you if you've ever wondered how to gracefully handle disrespect while maintaining your self-respect. By the end of this, you'll walk away with powerful, practical strategies to stand your ground and protect your peace without unnecessary conflict. If you're ready to take control, drop a comment with the city you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more empowering advice. Now, let's dive into the first strategy, holding your head high. 1. Hold your head high. Confidence is a universal language that doesn't require words. It's expressed in how you carry yourself. Holding your head high is more than just a physical posture. It's a statement of self-worth, a declaration that you know who you are and won't allow anyone's negativity to shake you. This strategy is especially powerful when you feel disrespected. Imagine this. You're at a family gathering and someone makes a condescending comment about your choices. Perhaps it's about your decision to retire early, how you spend your free time, or even your fashion sense. Their tone suggests they think they know better than you. In that moment, it's tempting to explain yourself or respond defensively. Instead, you pause, take a breath, square your shoulders, and meet their gaze with a calm, unbothered expression. Why does this work? Because confidence unsettles people who disrespect you. They thrive on making others feel small to boost their own egos. When you don't give them the reaction they're fishing for, when you don't flinch or look away, it shifts the power dynamic. You're silently telling them, "I see you, but your words don't define me." I remember a time when a colleague couldn't resist making subtle digs at me during meetings. "Are you sure that's the best approach?" they'd ask with a smirk in front of everyone. It was frustrating and embarrassing, but instead of letting their words sink in, I decided to change my response. The next time it happened, I sat up straight, made eye contact, and said nothing. My calm reaction threw them off. They stumbled over their words, realizing their comment didn't land the way they intended. From that point on, they treated me with more respect. Holding your head high is not just about standing tall physically, it's also about the inner posture of self-assurance. It reminds you and others that your value isn't up for debate. This doesn't mean pretending the disrespect doesn't hurt. It's about showing yourself and others that you won't let that hurt dictate your response. There's a deeper psychological benefit too. When you hold your head high, you're sending a message to yourself. I am strong. I am worthy. Over time, this repeated affirmation builds resilience and reinforces your confidence. It's not just about handling disrespect, it's about reconditioning your mindset to prioritize your self-respect above the opinions of others. This doesn't mean you won't encounter challenges. Society often conditions us to shrink ourselves, to avoid conflict, or to be the bigger person by letting disrespect slide. But letting disrespect slide isn't the same as maintaining your dignity. Holding your head high allows you to rise above negativity while still standing firm in who you are. For many of us, this may feel unnatural at first, especially if you've spent years accommodating others or avoiding confrontation. But confidence is like a muscle. The more you practice it, the stronger it gets. Start with small situations. At the grocery store when someone cuts in line, in casual conversations when someone interrupts you, or during family gatherings when an insensitive comment is made. Remember, confidence is not arrogance. Holding your head high doesn't mean you're dismissing others or trying to appear superior. Instead, it's about respecting yourself enough to refuse to be diminished by someone else's words or actions. You don't have to react emotionally or engage in unnecessary arguments. Your posture, your steady gaze, and your calm demeanor are often louder than any words you could say. In the end, Holding your head high is about reclaiming your power. It's a subtle yet profound way to show the world and yourself that your value doesn't depend on anyone's approval. As you practice this strategy, you'll notice a shift not only in how others treat you, but also in how you perceive yourself. So the next time someone tries to make you feel small, resist the urge to defend yourself or explain your choices. Instead, take a deep breath, lift your chin, and stand tall. Let your confidence speak for itself. This simple act says, "I am proud of who I am, and nothing you say can take that away." Now that we've explored the power of confidence, let's dive into a strategy that's just as effective, using silence to speak volumes. 2. Embrace the silent stare. When words fail, or when they simply aren't necessary, the silent stare speaks volumes. This simple yet powerful technique is about reclaiming control in situations where disrespect is aimed your way. It's a subtle, elegant way to assert your boundaries without raising your voice or even saying a word. Imagine someone interrupting you mid-sentence at a family dinner, dismissing your point with a wave of their hand or a condescending remark. It stings, doesn't it? The natural reaction might be to defend yourself, raise your voice, or fire back with a sharp comment. But what if you chose silence instead? Not passive silence, but an intentional, deliberate one. You pause, meet their eyes, and hold their gaze. No words, no visible anger, just calm, composed silence. This technique works because it disrupts the dynamic the other person expects. People who disrespect others are often fishing for a reaction. They want to see you flustered, defensive, or angry because it gives them power. By refusing to engage in their game, you flip the script. The silent stare conveys, "I see what you're doing, but I'm not playing along." I recall a story shared by a friend who used this strategy at a meeting. A colleague kept interrupting her ideas, undermining her with sarcastic comments. Instead of arguing, she leaned back, folded her hands, and stared directly at him. The room grew quiet, and everyone turned to see what would happen next. The colleague, clearly uncomfortable, stumbled over his words and eventually fell silent. That one unspoken message did what 1,000 words couldn't. It established her authority without creating unnecessary drama. Why is the silent stare so effective? First, it's unexpected. Most people are accustomed to verbal back and forths. When you respond with quiet confidence instead of words, it takes them off guard. They're left to sit with their own behavior, facing the weight of the silence you've created. Second, it signals self-control. It shows you're not easily provoked, which is a hallmark of inner strength. Psychologically, the silent stare can also act as a mirror. When you look directly at someone without responding to their disrespect, you force them to confront their own actions. Most people don't like what they see in that mirror. They start questioning their words, their tone, and their motives. This self-reflection is far more impactful than any verbal retaliation could be. For you, the silent stare is empowering. It's a reminder that you don't owe anyone an emotional reaction. You're not obligated to justify yourself or stoop to their level. Instead, you can maintain your dignity, choosing calm over chaos. Practicing this technique can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to filling silences with explanations or defensiveness. Start with small moments. The next time someone makes an unnecessary comment or crosses a boundary, pause before reacting. Take a deep breath and meet their eyes. Hold that gaze for a few seconds longer than feels natural. You'll be amazed at how quickly the power dynamic shifts. Of course, this isn't about being aggressive or intimidating. The silent stare is not a glare or a scowl. It's calm, neutral, and composed. Its power lies in its stillness, in the quiet confidence it radiates. It says, "I respect myself too much to engage with disrespect." For example, I once encountered a neighbor who loved to complain about trivial things, like where I parked my car or how my garden looked. One day, as they began their usual tirade, I didn't argue or defend myself. Instead, I stopped, turned to face them, and silently listened. I didn't nod, frown, or interrupt. I simply looked at them. After a few awkward moments, their words trailed off, and they mumbled something before walking away. They never approached me in the same way again. The silent stare isn't about ignoring the problem or letting someone win. It's about choosing how to spend your energy and asserting your boundaries in a way that protects your peace. So, the next time someone disrespects you, remember the power of the silent stare. It's not passive. It's a conscious, active choice to stay grounded. Let your silence say what words never could. I am unshaken. I am in control. Now that we've explored the strength in silence, let's move to another powerful strategy: learning to stop explaining yourself. 3. Stop explaining yourself. How often do we feel the need to explain our choices as if they require someone else's approval? It's a habit many of us have, especially as we grow older and others question our decisions more often. But here's the truth. You don't owe anyone an explanation for how you choose to live your life. Think about it. You decide to skip a family gathering or decline an invitation to an event. Suddenly, the questions come rolling in. Why aren't you going? Or, don't you think you should be there? It's tempting to justify yourself, listing reasons to make others understand. But what if you didn't? What if instead you simply said, "Because that's what I decided," and left it at that? This approach is not about being dismissive or rude. It's about protecting your independence and reminding both yourself and others that your life is your own. People who constantly question your choices are often not genuinely curious. They're projecting their own expectations or judgments onto you. Explaining yourself only feeds their sense of entitlement to an answer. Here's an example. A retired friend once shared her experience of deciding not to babysit her grandchildren full-time. Her adult children, though well-meaning, questioned her choice. Why not? Don't you want to help out? They asked repeatedly. At first, she felt guilty and tried to explain she wanted time for herself, for hobbies she'd put on hold for years. But no matter how she framed it, her reasons didn't seem to satisfy them. Eventually, she changed her approach. The next time they asked, she calmly said, "Because this is what works best for me." No further explanations. It wasn't easy, but it worked. Over time, her children stopped pressing the issue and began respecting her boundaries. Why is this strategy effective? Because it establishes a clear line. When you stop explaining yourself, you're signaling that your decisions are not up for debate. It shows confidence and self-assurance, qualities that naturally command respect. By keeping your responses simple and direct, you also avoid unnecessary emotional labor. Over-explaining can be draining and often leads to frustration when the other person doesn't accept your reasoning. Let's explore another situation. You choose not to attend a holiday party. Someone asks, "Why aren't you coming? Is something wrong?" Instead of launching into a long-winded explanation about your busy schedule, health, or personal preferences, you reply with a kind but firm, "I've decided to stay home this time." No excuses. No justification, just a statement of your choice. At first, this may feel uncomfortable. We're often taught that explaining ourselves is polite, or that it helps others understand us better. But the reality is, most people who question your choices aren't looking for understanding. They're looking for validation of their own perspectives. When you don't offer that, they're forced to sit with their discomfort, and eventually they stop asking. Not explaining yourself also benefits you. It frees you from the need for approval and shifts your focus back to what truly matters: living your life authentically. It's empowering to make decisions based solely on what feels right for you, without worrying about how others perceive them. Of course, there are exceptions. In close relationships, where understanding each other's choices is part of maintaining trust and connection, some level of explanation may be appropriate. But even then, you can choose to keep it brief and clear. For instance, instead of detailing why you don't want to take on a certain responsibility, you might simply say, "I'm focusing on other priorities right now." Stopping the habit of over-explaining takes practice, especially if it's something you've done for years. Start small. The next time someone questions your decision, pause before responding. Ask yourself, does this person really need an explanation, or are they just curious? If it's the latter, resist the urge to elaborate. Stick to a simple, confident statement. In the end, your life is yours to live. Your choices don't need a stamp of approval from anyone else to be valid. By letting go of the need to explain yourself, you reclaim your autonomy and reinforce your self-worth. So, the next time someone questions your decisions, remember this: a simple, confident answer is all you need. Now, let's explore a complementary strategy: how to create space between yourself and those who don't respect your boundaries. 4. Keep your distance. Sometimes the best way to handle disrespect is simply to keep your distance. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life, and creating healthy boundaries with toxic individuals is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. Imagine this: you have a longtime friend who constantly undermines your achievements or makes passive-aggressive comments about your choices. Perhaps they say things like, "Oh, I guess you're too busy for your old friends now," or they nitpick every decision you make. At first, you brush it off thinking, that's just how they are. But over time, their negativity starts to weigh on you. You find yourself walking on eggshells, anticipating their next jab. Here's the hard truth: relationships like these aren't just unpleasant, they're emotionally draining. By keeping such people close, you're allowing their negativity to invade your mental and emotional space. The solution? Create distance. Keeping your distance doesn't mean cutting ties entirely or being cold. It's about prioritizing your well-being and protecting your peace. Instead of seeing this friend every week, you might gradually reduce your interactions to once a month or only in group settings. This way, you maintain politeness and avoid unnecessary conflict, but you also shield yourself from their toxic energy. I remember a neighbor who used to criticize everything about my garden, from the color of the flowers to the placement of the pots. Every encounter left me feeling judged and annoyed. One day, I decided enough was enough. I didn't confront them or engage in an argument. Instead, I started limiting my interactions to quick, polite greetings. If they tried to draw me into a conversation, I'd smile, say something neutral, and move on. Over time, the negativity faded, not because they changed, but because I stopped giving them access to my emotional energy. The beauty of creating distance is that it offers clarity. When you step back from toxic relationships, you gain perspective. You begin to see patterns of behavior that were harder to notice when you were deeply involved. This clarity helps you decide how much energy and attention a person truly deserves. Of course, keeping your distance isn't always easy. Society often pressures us to maintain relationships out of loyalty, especially with family members or long-term friends. You might hear things like, "But they're family," or "You've known them for years." However, loyalty shouldn't come at the expense of your mental health. Just because someone has been in your life for a long time doesn't mean they have the right to mistreat you. Here's an important mindset shift. Distancing yourself is not about punishment or rejection. It's about self-care. It's about recognizing that your energy is finite and choosing to spend it on relationships that uplift and support you. The time and space you gain can be redirected toward people who respect and value you, or toward activities that bring you joy and fulfillment. For example, I had a colleague who would always find a way to complain or criticize during our conversations. Every interaction left me drained, but I felt obligated to engage because we worked together. One day, I decided to change my approach. I didn't avoid them entirely, but I started keeping our interactions strictly professional. I focused on work-related topics and politely excused myself when the conversation veered into personal negativity. Over time, I felt lighter and more in control of my emotional state. If you're wondering how to start creating distance, begin with small steps. Limit how often you respond to texts or calls. Decline invitations to events that feel more like obligations than opportunities to connect. When you do interact, keep the conversation light and neutral. You don't owe anyone deep explanations or emotional engagement, especially if they don't reciprocate respect. At first, you may feel guilty, especially if the other person reacts with confusion or resentment. But remember, setting boundaries is about protecting your well-being, not pleasing others. Over time, as you experience the benefits of distancing yourself, the guilt will fade, replaced by a sense of peace and empowerment. Ultimately, keeping your distance is a way of reclaiming your life. It's a reminder that you have the right to decide who gets access to your time, energy, and emotions. By creating space from negativity, you make room for positivity and growth. Now, let's explore another powerful strategy, embracing silence as a way to take control without saying a word. 5. Embrace silence as your answer. In a world where everyone seems eager to have the last word, silence can be a revolutionary act. When faced with disrespect or negativity, choosing silence as your response sends a message that words cannot. It's not about avoidance, it's about control of your emotions, your energy, and the situation itself. Picture this. You're at a social gathering and someone makes a biting comment disguised as a joke about your appearance or decisions. "Oh, I see you're not dressing up much these days," they chuckle, waiting for your reaction. The temptation to defend yourself or retaliate is strong, but instead, you take a deep breath, meet their eyes briefly, and remain silent. As the pause stretches uncomfortably, their smugness begins to falter. Without a word, you've disrupted their attempt to provoke you. Silence is powerful because it's unexpected. People who thrive on disrespect often anticipate an emotional reaction, a flustered defense, a sharp retort, or even an argument. When you deny them that reaction, the dynamic shifts. Your silence says, "I'm not engaging with this," and forces them to sit with their own words. More often than not, it's their discomfort that ends the exchange, not yours. I remember a colleague who loved to challenge every idea I presented in meetings. They'd nitpick details, not because they were genuinely interested, but to undermine my confidence. One day, after a particularly snide comment, I chose not to explain or defend myself. Instead, I paused, looked at them calmly, and said nothing. The room went silent. Without an argument to latch onto, their critique hung awkwardly in the air. Others in the meeting began to notice, and eventually the colleague shifted uncomfortably and dropped the subject. From that moment on, their challenges became less frequent and far less confrontational. So, why is silence so effective? First, it demonstrates emotional control. Choosing silence shows that you're not easily rattled and that you value your peace over petty exchanges. Second, it denies the other person the power they seek. Disrespectful comments are often bait, meant to draw you into conflict. When you don't take the bait, the instigator is left without fuel for their fire. Silence also speaks volumes about your self-respect. It signals that you don't feel the need to justify or defend yourself to people who don't value you. This quiet confidence can be unsettling to others, but it's incredibly empowering for you. Let's be clear, silence isn't about passivity. It's an active choice that requires strength and presence of mind. There's a difference between being silent because you feel powerless and choosing silence because you're in control. The latter allows you to dictate the tone of the interaction and protect your energy. Of course, silence may not be easy at first. It can feel counterintuitive, especially if you're used to explaining yourself or standing your ground with words. Start small. The next time someone makes a rude or unnecessary comment, pause before reacting. Take a breath and ask yourself, does this really deserve my energy? If the answer is no, let the silence linger. A friend once shared a powerful example of this. After switching careers later in life, they faced constant questions and criticisms from acquaintances. "Why would you leave a stable job at your age?" was a recurring refrain. Initially, they tried to explain their decision, only to be met with more skepticism. One day, they decided to stop explaining. When someone asked the familiar question, they simply smiled and said nothing. The silence was uncomfortable for the other person, who eventually changed the subject. My friend walked away feeling lighter and more in control of the narrative. Silence also creates space for reflection, not just for you, but for others. When faced with no response, people are often forced to examine their words and intentions. Sometimes, they may even realize their own mistakes. Choosing silence doesn't mean ignoring serious issues or avoiding important conversations. It's about recognizing when a response isn't necessary or productive. By embracing silence, you reserve your energy for interactions that truly matter and refuse to let negativity dictate your emotions. So, the next time someone throws disrespect your way, resist the urge to engage. Pause, breathe, and let silence be your answer. It might just be the loudest statement you ever make. With this, we've explored 5 powerful strategies to handle disrespect with grace and confidence. Remember, respect starts with you, and these tools can help you maintain it. Now, let's reflect on everything we've learned today. Respect starts with you. It begins with the boundaries you set, the confidence you carry, and the energy you choose to protect. Whether it's holding your head high, embracing silence, or keeping your distance, each of these strategies reminds you of your inherent worth. Life is too precious to spend it worrying about the opinions of those who fail to see your value. Take these tools and use them to stand firm in your self-respect. Remember, you don't have to explain yourself or engage with negativity. By prioritizing your peace and dignity, you create a life filled with positivity and meaning. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need these reminders. Let's build a community that uplifts and supports each other. Thank you for watching, and take care.